Gil Martin here on Locked On NHL Thursday edition. A big resignation as the Ducks general manager steps down. We'll be joined by Jason Hernandez to discuss that. Plus, we have our weekly power rankings, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show.
Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Right, everybody, welcome to the Thursday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin here. I usually host the show on Mondays, but I'm in for Adam Denker and Chris Micieli today. And we have some big breaking news to get to. But first, I want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. But the big news, the Anaheim Ducks general manager stepping down, resigning. And here to talk about it, Jason Hernandez of Locked On Anaheim Ducks. And Jason, thanks so much for doing yet another show today. You have been everywhere, my friend.
This is my third, time being on Locked On NHL this week alone. What's going on? Well, too much is going on. Good that you didn't go away
this week.
Yeah. Well, too much has gone on this week.
Yeah, you have been a little overwhelmed. So why don't you start off by telling our viewers and listeners what happened? I mean, what is going on in Anaheim right now?
This started yesterday, where the Ducks made the following statement, where they said that we became aware of accusations of improper professional conduct against Bob Murray. And after internal review, we enlisted Shepard Mullen to perform an independent investigation. Upon recommendation from their initial findings, we placed Bob Murray on administrative leave pending final results. What that tells me, they found something that they already put him on leave, basically saying, okay, we actually need to get our more facts straight. But whatever was on that initial report was not good to begin with.
No.
And from that initial, so I'm kind of just going back a day, but I feel like this needs a timeline over the last 24 to 48 hours where Bob Murray had to be placed on leave. And then reports started to come out why he was on leave, what was going on. And then we heard that there were accusations about intimidation. There was verbal abuse, but not just verbal abuse, repeated verbal abuse. What got to me was that this was a pattern that had been going on for years. And this is still a question. We still don't know how long this had been occurring. And it's sad to say, but there were quotes that came out, and this is one such quote from an anonymous source. If I can quote this, quote, "Working for Bob Murray was pure daily mental warfare. The abuse was endless. Crazy texts to players and staff, berating them for their performance, and threats of job security happened with regularity. These were not one-time slip-ups or mistakes. These were regular explosions and eruptions," end quote. So upon hearing quotes like this, it started to become more and more alarming that this may have been something pretty big, to be honest. So that's where I kind of fell asleep last night thinking, okay, we're going to hear more. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
And it did. I mean, the fact that the resignation comes, 24 hours, give or take, after the initial putting him on leave tells you that what they found out had to be pretty clear-cut and pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty alarming to hear at least more and more about what's coming out. And this is related to that memo that went out by the NHL a couple weeks ago, where, if you find anything wrong, immediately report that conduct to the league, to their hotline, which I know on the group. Oh, there was a roundtable recently where that was kind of dismissed. Is this really going to help? It has, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and it didn't take long, but wow. I guess, well, first of all, let's deal with this right now. Where do the Ducks go from here? Who's going to be the interim GM, and how does the team work going forward?
So the interim general manager is going to be Jeff Solomon, who had recently worked with their crosstown rival, the Los Angeles Kings. Solomon did a fantastic job with that team, helping build them up. So this is Solomon's chance to shine. And moving forward, he will be the GM for now. And there's actually a little bit more to this. So fast forward to just literally hours ago came the bombshell that Murray resigned. He just resigned. And honestly, that's kind of what I was hoping would happen. The more we were going to hear, the worse we knew it was going to get. And I said, even earlier today, it'd be best for all parties involved if he simply resigned. And I originally said by the end of this week, like, he should resign and let this just be done with and move on. But then we're hearing that he's entering the alcohol abuse program. So at least he's getting that help. And I had mentioned this on another podcast, but this harkens back to what happened in Dallas, and stick taps to Sarah Avampado for pointing this out initially, that this is very similar to what happened in Dallas 2 years ago. If you recall, 2 years ago, this happened with now he's the Blues coach, Jim Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Montgomery was fired by the Stars, and there were some pretty bad comments made about him even a couple years ago. Now, fortunately for him, he's gotten sober and a second chance with the St. Louis Blues. As for Bob Murray, it's a sad tale. It's sad to see this happen, but I mean, he did at least make a statement saying that he's going to try to get help. He's going to try to work on, I guess, improving his life, for the betterment of his family and his friends. So at least there's that.
Mm-hmm.
But he did at least say, quote, "I want to apologize to anyone adversely affected by my behavior. I vow to make changes to my life, starting with enrolling in a treatment program." So at least the league, or at least like something's trying to be done. And it's good to see him go into a treatment program. I do hope, like, humanizing this, I do hope he recovers and gets better as he battles this.
Absolutely. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's one thing he loses his job, but he has the rest of his life, hopefully. And if he can get back on track, that is certainly beneficial for him, his family, and his future. So,
yeah,
we definitely would like to see that happen. It's just, so many things like this have been happening around the league now, where these scandals have been erupting. How would you say the Ducks organization has handled this so far, if you were to give them a grade so far on the way they've dealt with this?
So far, I would give the grade at least a B.
Mm-hmm.
No, even better. I'd give it a B plus A minus. The only reason I graded that low is because this has happened for some time, and I was kind of hoping this would come out earlier. I mean, I look at an incident from 12 years ago where Bob Murray threw a chair, or rather swung a chair, at a woman. It accidentally struck her, and this was at the end of a 2009 round between the Red Wings and the Ducks, where Murray allegedly did that. Now, the court was dismissed 3 years later,
Mm-hmm.
but it is still a thing that happened. I mean, does the drunkenness, is it an excuse for how he's treated others? I mean, there's still so many questions to be answered.
Sure.
But
sure.
I'm sure the two are at least somewhat related. I mean, alcohol abuse is a pretty scary thing.
It is. I have seen it, up close in my lifetime with people I know. And yeah, it is a very difficult thing to deal with. And Would you say, based on what you're describing, has this sort of been an open secret in the Ducks organization for a long time?
I mean, there's a certain intimidation factor around Bob Murray, so I don't know if I want to say for sure. But what I will say is, whenever he was around, there was a certain, I don't want to say walking around eggshells, but there was a certain kind of, you want to be careful what you say around him. And hearing more and more people say this, yeah, those rumors are indeed true, unfortunately. So maybe it's just good to step forward from here on out, hopefully.
We had you on the Monday show on Locked On NHL to talk about the 4-game winning streak of the Anaheim Ducks. Seems like a long time ago, I'm sure. But yes, now 5. How does this affect the team going forward? Is this something that lifts a weight off their shoulders? Is this something that causes them problems going forward, short term, long term? How does you think the team will react and the organization will react to the fallout of the resignation?
It didn't affect them yesterday. They did win.
Yes.
And I've said this multiple times. I'll say it again. This rings true. Winning heals wounds. We've seen this time and time again across all sports. When a team is on a winning streak or when they keep winning, then some of the other rotten stuff tends to be forgotten. And that's kind of waxing poetic. That's kind of why we need sports. Like we need the games to happen, just to give a little bit of brevity and at least some sense of, let's not think about the horrible thing going on. Let's focus on the game itself. And I think that's what the team has to do. They have to just focus on playing the games. They have to focus on the hockey. I mean, they're on a good streak right now.
Yeah.
Will this be distracting? Yeah, it probably will. But at least for right now, they're doing a good job of blocking all of that out and still maintaining this now 5-game winning streak, hopefully about to be a 6-game winning streak because they are playing Seattle on Thursdays, a late night Thursday. But maybe it could be 6 games. Who knows?
We shall see, and hopefully it gets straightened out. And again, hopefully Bob Murray can get his life straightened out. Another hockey executive resigning in scandal. Not an easy season so far, PR-wise, for the National Hockey League.
No, and I guarantee you we're going to hear more details in the coming days and weeks about all the goings-on behind the scenes with Bob Murray and the Ducks.
Yeah, we probably will. And Jason, we may have you back. Hopefully it'll be for good reasons also.
Once they win 7 in a row.
Yeah, that would certainly be great.
And Troy Terry gets his 14-game point streak right now at 12.
There you go.
And
there you go.
Actually, you know what? I probably should come back. Is when, not if, when Ryan Getzlaf hits 1,000 points.
Yes, that would definitely be an appropriate occasion to have you back for a good thing. But Jason Hernandez, want to thank you so much for joining us today. And, always a pleasure to talk to you, but hopefully next time under happier circumstances.
Hey, the grind never ends. I should probably tell everyone that you could find my podcast, Locked On Anaheim Ducks. It's free and available across all platforms. My Twitter is at StimpyJD, and the show's Twitter is at LO_Ducks. And thanks to all the fans for their support. Thanks for everyone sending messages the last 24 hours. It's been busy.
Yeah, it has been, but hopefully you got through it. Was dinner good? I mean,
dinner was delicious.
Okay, good. At least you got that much. You got that much done. Jason Hernandez, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right.
Whew.
All right. So want to thank Jason very much for joining us. And again, difficult circumstances for him. We've got more to discuss on this episode of the Locked On NHL podcast. We have our weekly power rankings as voted on by our local experts. We'll break those down and talk about them coming up a little bit later on in the show. This episode is brought to you by betonline.ag. We're back and better than ever. A new web interface for the start of the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. So head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. So yes, for listening to Locked On NHL and using the promo code LOCKEDON, betonline.ag will give you free money to bet on. That's a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. From basketball, football, baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So check out BetOnline, where the game starts. Once again, want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. So let's get to the power rankings. They're always fun, and our local experts vote on them every week. And, not a lot of surprise. Top did change. The new number one team is the Florida Panthers. They were 2 last week, while the number 2 team is the Carolina Hurricanes. They were number 1 last week. Edmonton Oilers holding steady at 3. Moving up to the 4 slot, though, is the Calgary Flames. They were 8th a week ago, and they now move up. Also moving up big time, the Minnesota Wild. They were 10th a week ago. They are now rounding out the top 5. And rounding out the top 10, the Washington Capitals 6, the defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning are 7, the St. Louis Blues slipping to 8, the New York Rangers at 9, and crashing the top 10 right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I got to say, the Maple Leafs doing pretty well, but there's an interesting stat. You look at the Maple Leafs in the standing right now. Toronto place right now. There's 2 at home. I think some to do with again. It's sort of women steady 6-1 and 3 in there are hot, and they are in the opposite situation. They have played 6 road games, 6 games, but they've been better on the road. 5-1 away from Calgary, just 2-1-3 at home. That is an amusing statistic that to things done for row as we speak. 5-2-3 in their last 10 games, and again, getting going. I want to moment now, sometimes that are going on, and they have managed to keep on winning, and in spite of that, only rising 5-game winning streak from 25 up to 22 in our power rankings. And when I look at it, I really think that this team should be ranked higher right now, just because of the consistent play they've been, having, and their record is better than 22nd. There are some teams ahead of them in this poll that, in my mind, probably don't belong ahead right now of the Red Hot Ducks. It's still early. Each team has played, give or take, 10, 11 games. And, it's still early when thinking about where teams are. So those are some of the teams that have been rising, or some of the teams that deserve to be rising. We'll take a look at some of the surprises and some of the teams that have fallen when we come back and continue our look at our top 32 power rankings on the Locked On NHL podcast. Welcome back to the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin in for Adam Denker and Chris Micieli on the Thursday edition this week, and so glad you could join us. Let's talk about some of the teams that have fallen in the rankings. And, not a lot of teams with huge dips, but one team that has fallen down. They were 14th last week. They are 21st this week, and that is the Buffalo. Lose in a row. And all of a sudden, they are falling in the standings with the 5-game losing streak. They're now at NHL 500 at 5-5-2, and I'm kind of surprised that, you would think that of Jack I could that have helped the team instead of hurting it, and right now it really, has hurt them. One team that really has dropped last week, 22nd, this week, 24th. The Vegas been struggling a bit right now. And I think six and from the cancel that they fell under the circumstance. A lot of it recent bias and how the night before the poll is taken certainly has something to do with it. The bottom four, the Ottawa Senators, 30th, the Montreal Kings. Now, there was a little flip-flop. The Arizona Coyotes moved from 31 down to 32. The Chicago Blackhawks climbed from 32 to 31. Kind of ironic. And that's why they leapfrog Arizona. So kind of, I don't know, you think they would have a big celebration finally getting off the schneid after 10 straight. And they nowhere else for them but up from the number 32 spot. The Pittsburgh Penguins, they dropped 5. Pittsburgh slowly back. 4-3 on the season, game over NHL 500. The goal differential is even, and yet, ironically, they Metropolitan Division are above NHL 500. .500. That is a very rare thing to happen. So there is that sort of fall that a lot of people were surprised about. A couple of other teams that dropped, the San Jose Sharks dropping from 13 to our list. And 12 games, 15 points. Goal differential 5. How about the LA that they only moved up from 20th to 25th? I think the Kings should have moved up a little bit more, but as of right now, that is the power rankings, and some surprises in there, but overall, I think our experts pretty close to accurate on this. Nothing, I could quibble with a number of different rankings on the poll. I am not going to say that there is a team that is just way out of bounds and doesn't belong anywhere near where they are on the list. So, there is that, and we'll be back next Thursday, of course, with a completely new and updated 32-team NHL Power Ranking as voted on by our local experts. Want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Now make your next listen Locked On Bets. It's your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. It's Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. We'll set you up the upcoming weekend's games coming up on the Friday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Make sure you join us for that. Thank you so much for listening to this. Have a great day. Stay safe, everyone. And thanks for listening to the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Gil Martin. You can follow me on Twitter at IceWarsNYR, and I am the host of the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast and the Locked On Islanders podcast. So please feel free to join me and listen to that. Take care, stay safe, and again, enjoy the NHL.